Good morning, everybody. It's Simon here from careermap.co.uk, the team behind bringing you National Graduate Week, and welcome to this second day of Graduate Week and our second live event actually of today, where we're going to be joined by the team from National Grid. The team will be talking today about their graduate development programme, and you'll be able to gain insider information on what working at National Grid is really like. So before we start, I'd just like to say there is a chat facility on the right-hand side of your screen. If you've got any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to jot them in there, and we'll run through as many as we can during the Q&A session at the end. But before we get started, we'll just do some introductions. So Jenny, nice to see you. Would you like to start and introduce yourself and give us a bit of an overview of your role at National Grid?
Yeah, hi everyone. Great to hear that so many people have joined this event today. So I'm Jenny Pierce. I'm the new talent lead in the UK. So I manage a small team of, and Lucy and Auntie are here today to help with the presentation, also Laura as well. So I've been at National Grid for quite a long time, always been in HR and worked in various different roles. Obviously, great company to work for, and worked on new talent for about a year now, but previously I worked within the new talent team for about 10 years, so recruiting the grads and students and apprentices, so all good fun. Shall I hand over to Lucy? Go up the list.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lucy. I've worked at National Grid for about 2 years now. In that time, I've been working with the graduate, undergraduate and apprentice programmes. So I just look after the kind of day-to-day recruitment for all of the roles and just manage the process from kind of application right through the assessment centres until we have our new starters.
Excellent. Thanks, Lucy. Anthony, you next?
Hi there, I'm Anthony Coleman. I've worked at National Grid for about 5 years. I was previously in the capital delivery team, working with the engineers, and I joined the new talent team about 4 weeks ago, doing the same thing as Lucy, looking after the end-to-end process of applications.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anthony. Fraser?
Hi, yeah, I'm Fraser, and as it says, I'm a finance graduate. I'm currently in business services within R2R, and I'm moving to be in the finance business partnering team, looking after ET, what was capital delivery, CapEx, capital expenditure.
Excellent. Thanks, Fraser. And Amica?
Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Amica Hanyam. I'm a graduate with National Grid. I've just finished up one of my placements as a graduate interconnector support engineer with our NGV team, and I've now moved back to the system operator team where I work as a power systems engineer, basically doing a couple of voltage analysis and things like that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let's start your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just first start and speak a little bit about what or who National Grid are. So National Grid is, like it says, the leading international electricity and gas company. So we own the high voltage electricity network in England and Wales. So we own over 4,400 miles of overhead lines and 1,400 miles of underground cables that pass our electricity around the country. We also own the gas transmission network, and that has 4,700 miles of high pressure pipes. So we're at the heart of one of the greatest challenges, delivering clean energy. So our task is to basically facilitate connecting offshore wind farms and making sure the grid is capable of delivering net zero by 2050. So yeah, that's basically our main goal. We have around 26,000 employees, 16,000 working in the US and 10,000 here in the UK. So National Grid is a PLC group, and it owns not only the transmission side, but it also owns the system operator side. So that's the ESO, and the ESO essentially makes sure that when everybody wakes up in the morning and puts their kettle on, that, you know, there isn't, the grid doesn't go down and there's a big spike, and to make sure everything runs smoothly. And we also have a couple of different subsidiaries sort of under that. So we have National Grid Ventures that look after things like interconnectors between countries, and we also have a smaller subsidiary called National Grid Partners, which looks at basically investing in smaller energy companies with exciting and sort of innovating products, and trying to get them into sort of like a public listed company. So that's sort of a bit about what National Grid do. And now hand over to Amica.
Okay, yeah, moving on to the graduate program. It's basically an 18-month program for those who are, you know, technical or commercial graduates. And then for the finance graduate, precisely, it's about 3 years. So you do, for the finance graduates, they will do 1 year, one placement every year for 3 years. And then for the other graduate, they would basically do one placement every 6 months for 3 years. So like I mentioned, sorry, for 18 months. Like I mentioned, I'm just rounding up on my own second placement and then moving on to the third, so I've done that for about 6 months now. So this basically kind of helps us move people about within the company. People have the chance to move about, learn about the company, have different experiences and all that. And of course, you can imagine as a big company, we've got different business areas. So within the graduate program, you're allowed to move around, learn about the company, develop yourself professionally onto, you know, starting out in your first role for the company. So one of the good things about it is that everyone has a business coordinator. So a business coordinator will be someone who's been in the company for a bit longer and who has had, of course, some experience, some career development as well, and can guide you through the process, guide you through the graduate program, you know, help you with your choices for placements, help you see a wider picture in your career, and just provide overall direction for you as you move through the company and as you develop yourself. Another thing that is great about the graduate placement with National Grid is the fact that it kind of supports you through professional development. So some people would want to become chartered engineers, for instance, in the engineering side of things. Grid supports you through that. If you want to be a member of some of these professional bodies like the IAT or Amica or things like that, I'm a member of IAT, for instance. Grid did support me through the application for that. Grid did support me. Grid pays for the application as well. So I don't have to bother about my membership fees annually because Grid would pay for that. And as you prepare to become a chartered engineer as well, you get mentors within the company, and that's also funded by Grid as well. So it's one of the good perks of joining National Grid. And then our graduate scheme, the technical part of it is accredited by IMECI, by IAT. So again, these are bodies that you would want to be chartered with in the near future in your career. And so Grid kind of sees you through that on the graduate scheme. So the experiences you have, the lessons you learn and all that, all built towards chartership. And it's a very fun thing to have, actually, have that kind of support. So moving on to some of the perks about some of our requirements for joining the graduate scheme, you would have to have a 2.2 and above. So if you go to the website and look at our roles, you would have to have at least a 2.2 in your degree. So one of the good things is that Grid does recruit over a broad range of careers. So you don't have to, some of the roles are not tailored to just one degree alone. For instance, some roles will require you to have a STEM degree. So it doesn't matter if you're a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, or whatever thing it is. Once it's a STEM degree, some of our roles would accept STEM degrees, while some may require you to have a specific degree. So but on the website, you have all the requirements, and then you can decide what one to go for and what one suits your needs. I've been on the grad scheme, and I can confirm that, yes, that's the kind of salary payment that you get. So if you had a first degree, then you'd be looking at around 29,000 plus. If you have a master's, then you start out at about 30,000 plus, which is, I think, very good for the industry that we work in. There's also a £2,000 welcome payment. So if you would join Grid and start out on the graduate program, your first payment, you get a £2,000 taxable year welcome bonus. And I think there's also there's a completion bonus as well for when you complete undergraduate scheme. So that's something similar as well. One of the good things that Grid does is that for the fact that you'll be on a placement, like I mentioned, 3 placements all through the scheme, be it the finance one or the other one, Grid kind of helps you through the accommodation process. So you would imagine you'll be moving roles and moving places and all that. I started working for Grid when I was living in Glasgow, actually, and I had to move down to Kent, where I live now, for my 2nd placement, and I may have to move to Warwick for my 3rd placement. So Grid would basically support you with a certain amount of money every month towards your rent, makes life easier for you as you move about. You've got 25 days annual leave. We'll have a generous pension scheme as well, where you contribute, and Grid contributes as well towards your pension. So that's good financial security for you in the long run. And we've got a couple of other share save options and some other schemes where you can have part of the company shares as well as you go through. So it's a whole lot of exciting stuff going on, and I think it's a good period to want to consider our company. I'll pass on to Fraser now for the next.
Yeah, thanks, Amica. So we've just been asked to sort of explain our experiences here on the grad scheme, and sort of how it was like applying and things like that. So like I said, I've spent just over a year here, and I can confidently say that my time here has been overwhelmingly positive. Sort of starting midway through a pandemic, so it was about it was late September last year. It was certainly difficult, but National Grid more than supported me. Supplied a monitor, my work from home sort of equipment, everything that I needed to sort of set up and set up a little mini office at home. So that was really good. And then just sort of the support throughout. There's loads of contacts to go to. So when you start, you get assigned a buddy, which is an older grad, and to ask them any questions about sort of anything really. You have your line manager. Then we have what's called our BCs, which are our business coordinators, which are somebody within finance or within your business sector who looks after the grad scheme on a departmental level. There are people who run the grad scheme. A woman called Emma Bacon. She's a really good point of contact, and we also get assigned a mentor as well, which is more for career sort of progression, somebody to sort of ask about careers and guidance on that, and what should be a next placement, things like that. So there's loads of a raft of sort of contacts you can go to, also including sort of the grad network itself. There's 50 plus grads every year, so there's quite a wide network of people that you can go to. On top of that, I don't just get involved in my day-to-day role. So National Grid helped me, or are paying for my chartership for ACCA, which is an accounting body. So I study that in my spare time. I get involved in volunteering. So recently I've volunteered at a scout camp to put some fences up. I get involved in certain committees, engagement teams, organising big meetings, town halls. So there's so much more. I know a couple of graduates are getting involved in. You've probably heard about it, COP26. So a couple of grads are getting involved in that and being champions for that. So there's so much more to the grad scheme than just your day-to-day role. And that's something that I would really stress out, that there's so much opportunity to get involved in loads of different types of things, which is why sort of National Grid is a really good place to come and work, really. So why National Grid? To begin with, I sort of when I looked at this question, I sort of wrote, why not? It is a great company to work with. I remember researching National Grid and saw that were quite their values sort of reflected mine, their inclusivity, the diversity, the impact that they have on the climate and how they're trying to fix it and facilitate that in the future, net zero and things like that. It does really feel that we're sort of at the heart of trying to change our climate crisis for the better. And that's something that I'm really passionate about and really quite like to get involved in. So yeah, doing my research, I just thought National Grid was a really good fit. And then a couple of sort of things, hints and tips on submitting an application. So one thing I would say is just remember to do your research, show an interest in the company. That's sort of like a big thing for a lot of employers, is that you need to have a good understanding of how that business works, or maybe not how it works, but what it does, and what its ambitions are for the future, what its values are. Be yourself when it gets to the interview. That's a major one. Don't go in anywhere trying to be somebody who you think they want you to be. Be yourself, and yeah, that will shine through, because if you've got to that stage of an interview, you've got there on merit and merit alone. So make sure that sort of continues throughout the application process, and don't sort of be somebody you're not, because people will see through that. And then I sort of have a couple of just hints and tips of just that sort of general applications, sort of not just National Grid, but sort of elsewhere, because I know how hard it is, and I've been in your positions before. So one thing I would say is be disciplined. I know it's really, really difficult. Like I said, I've been there, and it is tough. But discipline is the number one thing to get you through sort of all the application processes. The way you articulate your experiences is sort of the most important thing, I would say. So I think Anthony will talk about the STAR method. Use that, but use it in a way that's just going to bring out the best and reflect the values that you want to portray, and that sort of anywhere that you're applying to wants you to sort of portray. And I sort of wrote a couple of things down when I was thinking about this earlier, and I remember applying to lots of different places, and I do kind of think that applying to lots of different places is a character building process, and that when you get to certain points in applications, it's really good to sort of reflect and get feedback on any failed applications, any successful applications, and improve that for later. I could sort of talk about all day how that if you get to an interview, it kind of shows that you have been disciplined and you have done all the right things. So just remember that, and remember that you sort of you do get to those processes because of where you are and on merit. So yeah, I think it's sort of the concerns and highlights. Definitely within the application process. Just remember that, and always look to improve. If you do get rejections, which I got a lot of, make sure to improve every time, and you should be okay. And I'll pass on to Amica, because he's been talking for quite a while.
Oh yeah, thanks, Fraser. Just to share my own experience as well. I think one of the key aspects for me in the graduate program have been the personal and career development type trainings that we've had. So over the graduate program, you would have a whole lot of trainings, professional trainings. National Grid goes a long way to prepare for these and bring external speakers and all that stuff to help you on a whole lot of subject matter, a lot of topics about your career and developing your very own self and all that. And you would find that these would be quite helpful as you go through your career and your personal life and in everything really. So I really love that, and that's one key thing I did benefit from the graduate scheme, and I still do benefit currently. They are specific on the job trainings as well. So when you join your teams, it doesn't matter. Grade knows that you're a fresh graduate and you've just come in from uni, and some of the concepts would not be the very same things you would see in a work environment and all that stuff. So you would have loads of opportunities to learn on your team. I'm a technical grad, for instance, and so when I joined Grid, of course, I had to do a lot of technical kind of work, and some of them I did not know a whole lot about. So, but there was support within my team. There was training, some of them already prepared, some of them organized especially for myself and new entrants like myself and all that. So you would have all the training that you would need to do your job well and to learn a lot about all that fun engineering stuff. And there's also site visits as well incorporated into the graduate program. Sadly, ours was plagued by, of course, COVID last year, so we couldn't go a lot of exciting places. But then I know that Grid does have site visits as part of the graduate program. So you can imagine with all the beautiful equipment we have out there and in all the other locations we have, you have opportunities to visit these places and to see firsthand how electricity is transmitted across the country and all that. And of course, the placements is also a very big highlight for me, because it's a good thing that you can move around the company. You've got like a shot at 3 different placements. So today I could be a technical engineer working in some really technical stuff, and then the next placement I could choose to be in the trading team, for instance, and that gives me a good commercial viewpoint of how energy is traded within the UK, and just gives me a very broad-based knowledge and all that stuff. So it's these are kind of my own key highlights for the program. I did apply for Grid after doing my research, because I found that Grid was involved in a whole lot of stuff. As people would say, you have your fingers in a lot of pies and all that stuff. So there was really a whole lot of options for personal development and career development for me within Grid. I'm not the kind of person who likes to be bored, who likes to be sat doing one thing over and over again. And I don't think people would enjoy that as well. So, but when you work for National Grid, you would have a lot of options. I think Fraser did mention the part of the different kinds of businesses that Grid is involved in. So there's really opportunities to move about within the business. You could hear some of the people who'd spoken to you earlier talk about the fact that they'd worked in this part of the business and the other part of the business and all that. So that way you have a lot of exciting stuff to do. One day you're analyzing power systems here. Tomorrow you're supporting interconnectors and all that. Tomorrow you're doing head VDC. Tomorrow you're doing, something that analyzes power from wind turbines and things like that. So it's really, really exciting and a plethora of things to do. That's, for me, was a good attraction point that made me want to work for Grid. So I did apply because of that, yeah. So when it comes to submitting applications, my own tips would be, of course, like Fraser did mention, you have to research the role. Know about what you want to do. You want to be a power systems engineer, you want to be a commercial analyst, whatever it is, at least to know about the role, so that when you're speaking and when they ask you, why do you want to join this company? Why do you want this? Why do you want that? You can at least make bold and emphatic statements that are actually very informed statements, because you've researched your role and you really know what you really want to do. Also research the company as well. That's very important. You can't say you want to work for Grid or any company for that matter, and you don't know a lot about what they do and the kind of values and ideas and their viewpoints and their kind of investments and things like that. So I think you should do a whole lot of job at researching the company. It would really, really help you, because questions during your interview can come from anywhere really, and it would be good to have someone who knows what they're talking about the company that you're applying to. One tip I found during my own round of applications when I was looking for a job as well was to try and apply early. It is possible that many recruiters, and I think it's the same thing with Grid, that when applications perhaps are kind of viewed at and worked on first come, first served basis. So the earlier you did apply, then I think the more your chances are. I think I've had one experience in the past when I was applying for jobs where I was waiting until perhaps the last 1 week or two to apply for a particular role, and it was closed earlier on before that time. So I think it's best for you to try and apply on time. That gives you, a whole lot of latitude, I guess. And try and highlight your experiences in your essays. So there's a lot of times when you'd be asked for maybe 1 or 2 essays to tell me about the time you did this or that in your application. Try and highlight your experiences. Remember, you're only a fresh grad. You may not have had technical experiences or experiences that relate to the role, but in perhaps your part-time job, maybe working at the bar or being a waiter somewhere, as I was once upon a time, in those part-time roles, you may have had the opportunity to demonstrate the skills that they are asking for. And so highlight them. It mustn't be engineering role, engineering experience or stuff related to the kind of particular job that we're talking about now. So highlight those experiences. They show that you've been doing something worthwhile with your time. And you did learn a whole lot of things as well. And what it's like to apply. And we have a slide coming up for that. But basically, applying for grade would be for you to, of course, fill up the application form online, submit your CV, things like that. There's a bunch of tests you have to do, like situational judgment tests, or them verbal and numerical reasoning kind of things and all that. There would be either telephone interviews or video interviews, and then, of course, eventually you go for an assessment center and all that. But it's going to come up in the next section of our presentation, I think, and one of my colleagues would take you through all of that. And generally, my general overview, and I'm not going to say what I'm saying now because I work for Grid. I'm saying it because it's the truth and it is what I've experienced in the 1 year I've worked for this company. I think that one of the beautiful things about Grid is that Grid would give you a lot of support for professional memberships, a lot of support for your everyday life. I can't imagine the amount of support we all did get through the pandemic and how flexible the company was and how understanding, and, you know, the company did really wear a human face, in my opinion, through the pandemic, helping us. Imagine me starting a new job entirely from home. For the first 6 months, I never saw anyone in my team at all. So the first placement I did, I didn't even see anyone at all. But I got a whole lot of support through that period. And that's one great thing you would have with Grid. So, yes, the company does mean what they say, actually, when they say they're pushing for net zero, or they care about the climate, and they care about you as an employee. And that's a highlight for me, really. And that's something to consider when you want to work for a company. I'll pass on to the next person to take over. I think I've rambled on for a bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Amica and Fraser. That was great. Thank you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the undergraduate programs. So they're a little bit different from the graduate placements, but thought it'd be good to give you just an overview. So our undergraduate programs consist of either 12-month industrial placements or 12-week summer internships. We have mechanical, electrical, civil or chemical engineering students who want a career in leadership and management. That's kind of what they're targeted towards. A variety of our business areas will offer undergraduate programs, but not all of them. So it is just a case of looking at the website and seeing where you can apply. You do have to be in your penultimate year of university to be eligible to apply for an undergraduate program. So that's just something to bear in mind. Some of the key benefits of an undergrad program is that it's almost kind of a try before you buy. So you get to develop hands-on experience within National Grid. You get exposure to the energy and power industry. It's a great stepping stone to the graduate development program. So if you are successful on your placement, you will be offered a position on a graduate scheme. So once you've finished university, you don't have to worry about applying. You've already got that kind of lined up. And you also get the chance to see if it's a good fit for you for National Grid. So that's definitely one of the best benefits. You'll have a buddy to support you during your placement. So as Fraser and Amica said, there's a lot of support on the grad programs, and it's exactly the same with the undergrad. You'll have kind of support all the way through. You'll have 25 days annual leave, and the starting salary is £20,212 for the undergrad program. So that's the undergrad program. Just going to talk to you a little bit about the application process. So I guess the first thing, just to touch on, that it is quite a long process. So it's not like when you apply for a role and you kind of hear back in the next 2 weeks. There is kind of set stages for when kind of each step happens. So the first stage is to complete an online application form. It should take you about an hour to complete. You can save it and return to it later. You'll be asked for kind of the things that you would expect on an application role. So just you upload your CV, put your personal details in, work history. There's also a motivational question, which is why have you applied for this role? Some courses may have an additional question, which is specific to the role you're applying for. So that's just something to bear in mind. Others will just have that motivational question. Once your application has been screened from this stage, if you meet all of the requirements for the role, you'll be progressed to the digital interview. So this digital interview is a number of short questions, and you'll be asked to answer competency-based questions. You can record and complete your interview anytime and anywhere you want. You do have a practice go for the interview as well. So yeah, you don't have to kind of record your first try. Part of this online assessments are also the profile assessments. So these are basically short online games that look at different elements of your cognitive, emotional and social traits. So you will be given these games to complete. They are timed and they're just kind of a hopefully more fun way of testing for those traits rather than kind of giving you a numeracy or a verbal test. We've just kind of replaced that with gamified assessments. After you've completed your digital interview and your profile assessments, you will receive personal feedback from your assessment. So you'll get that as soon as kind of you've finished. Once those assessments are completed, this is probably the longest kind of gap, I would say, in the process where you're kind of just waiting to hear back. I would say obviously don't worry too much, because depending on when your assessment centre is scheduled and different how many applications and how long it takes the hiring managers to look through your interviews, it could be a longer or shorter time that you actually hear back whether you've made it to the last stage, which is an assessment centre. So once all of the applications have been reviewed by the hiring managers, if you are invited to the final stage, that will be an assessment centre where you will experience a number of exciting activities. So that's normally in a competency-based interview with your assessors and a presentation exercise. And at the moment, these are virtual, so it's looking likely that for the next year as well, they'll be virtual, but hopefully we will go back to in person kind of sometime in the future. So I'll just hand over to Anthony now, who's going to give you all the hints and tips for every part of the process.
Thanks, Lucy. Hello, everyone. So yeah, this is just some sort of general hints and tips on the whole of the application process in general. So I'd start with applying early. For some of our popular roles, we sometimes close earlier than we've advertised. This is because sometimes the volume and quality of our candidate application is really high. At National Grid, we do get a lot of applications, and obviously we don't want to be overwhelmed by them. So it's important to get your applications in as soon as you can. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to check and submit your application. You might be applying for lots of roles, so it can be easy to just go through the motions and make mistakes. But try to make sure you're reading and understanding the question properly and taking time to really think about your answers. If the question does ask for 1,200 characters, try to get it close to that, or at least put in a couple of paragraphs. Sometimes very short answers can make it look like you've been rushing through the application or not read the question properly. Whenever you have free text answers, it's also a really good opportunity to make yourself stand out. So try to give some thought into that. And then there's deadlines. So ensure you stick to deadlines where possible. We're not always able to extend these. For our digital interview, I think we have a 7-day window to get your virtual interview and the online games complete. If you do have any issues or you think you might not be able to get them done in time, do let us know. But again, we are working to our own deadlines as well, so we're not always able to extend them. Ask questions. So if you're unsure about any part of the process, just ask. Once you get an invite to the assessment centre, we'll provide you with contact details that you're able to contact us on throughout the process. We've also got a Dropbox email address, which is monitored, and we can reply to you on there. And then this is a pretty important one, is using the STAR method when answering questions. That's the initial virtual interview and for the assessment centre interview. It ensures that you answer the question fully and show your capabilities. So for anyone that doesn't know, STAR stands for situation, task, action, and remedy. It's a really easy way to structure your answers. So situation, what's the issue? Task, what do you need to do? Action is the how you did it. And result is obviously how it was resolved. Did it make things better? Was it make things easier? There's loads of information online if you just Google STAR method, if you want more details on that. No distractions. So consider a space where there are likely to be no distractions and you feel comfortable in. This one speaks for itself, really. Obviously, it can be really off-putting to you and for us if you've got dogs barking and kids in the background and grandparents walking around. So just try to find a space where you feel comfortable and can relax and you can focus on the answers. Checking technology. So if you're checking technology is working prior to recording your interview, we obviously would like to see and hear you properly, so it's worth checking before that on your settings on your laptop and your phone. Make sure those settings are correct. At the moment, we're running assessment centres on Microsoft Teams, and we're thinking of running a quick briefing session a week before the assessment centres. So that will give you an opportunity to make sure that everything's working okay. You can check your camera and your microphone are working, and it gives you the opportunity to ask questions. And then no pressure. So you want to try and complete your application and interviews to the best of your abilities, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. I know it's a lot easier said than done, but if you do try to relax, you can take some deep breaths before starting. It will allow you to have a more normal and natural sort of behavioural style, which will come across in the process. Take a moment before logging on to start the interview to clear your head. It will help you focus and focus on your answers that you're giving, and it will make you feel more confident and relaxed. And that's pretty much it from me, I think.
Thanks, everybody. Really insightful presentation there, guys. Thanks very much. So yeah, we'll go straight into Q&A now. I've had a few questions coming in. Unfortunately, there's a few people that haven't been able to use the chat facility, so they've emailed us a few questions as well. But I'll start with Ari. A little bit off topic, but we actually have a graduate career map who's on an apprenticeship scheme at the moment doing a digital marketing one. So this is a little bit relevant anyway. But Ari asks, when do your apprenticeship programme vacancies normally open? Jenny, would you like to take that one?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again, Simon? It broke up a little bit then.
Yeah, Ari was just saying, when do your apprenticeship programme vacancies normally open?
Yeah, so they're going to open on the 29th of November and close around the 27th of February. But as with the graduate and student ones, if we get high volume, high quality, we will close some of the vacancies earlier. For those that maybe we're not getting the applications, we may extend the closing date. But yeah, it will all be on our website, and we'll be doing some promotional stuff over the next few weeks as well for our apprenticeship programmes.
So they can just go to that careers.nationalgrid.com website there?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Phil asks, and this is to the graduates, what's been your most memorable experience so far with National Grid?
Yeah, I'll just go for it. I think one of my most memorable experiences was being on site to experience us resolve one outage. So something happened on one of our sites, and then we lost one of our connections to France. That was a couple of months ago anyway. But being on site to witness that, I don't know, for me, because I'm kind of a technical junkie or something when it comes to these things, it kind of showed me firsthand what it felt like and what the resolution process was like. And it did make me appreciate my job a whole lot better, knowing that we were able to restore our services to lots of millions of people, I guess, who use the services that we render, the power that we supply and all that. I think that resolution process was it for me, yeah.
Excellent. Anybody else like to add anything?
I don't think my memorable experience is gonna live up to that. Really, so no, I don't.
No worries. We'll move on to another question. Nick says, does the mechanical engineering graduate placement require previous work experience or not?
My answer to that would be no. If you have experience, that's fine. But it's a graduate scheme because you're a fresh graduate out of uni, and no one's really expecting a fresh graduate to have loads of industrial experience already. But if you've had placements and that's really okay, yeah. But generally it doesn't require you to have experience.
Okay, thank you. Kelly says, are there many females working at National Grid?
Hi, there are. I think some roles are more popular than others. For example, like the HR role tends to attract a higher volume of females, with some of the engineering roles predominantly a male. But we are obviously encouraging applications for all diversity across all programmes as much as we can. And it would be great to get the number of female engineers increased year on year. So yeah, any ideas and suggestions and thoughts from anybody on the call, just drop us some ideas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Diversity is a big thing, isn't it?
Just to add to that, yeah. I was looking at the ET structure the other day, and I believe within the leadership team on the ET, there are quite a number of pillars. I believe I think it was something like 80% were females within those leadership roles. Sort of they're one below the exec team, basically, and they report into the president of ET. So there is ample opportunity, to progress in that sort of way anyway. And our UK exec is also female, with quite a number of females on the exec board itself. There's still a way to go, but yeah, it's promising.
Encouraging more females into engineering. So any females on the call, please apply. That'd be great. Alice says, which is the most competitive branch of the graduate scheme?
I would say we do have kind of traits, roles that are always really popular. So HR role, that always attracts a lot of opportunities. The finance program as well, and also some of the cyber roles within IT. Sometimes we have surprises. So this year we had a data scientist role, which was extremely popular. But yeah, so the mainstays are normally the kind of finance, HR, and also the cyber roles.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Nick, again, he's been a very active participant today. Lots of questions, thanks, Nick. It says to the grads again, how have you dealt with adversity at National Grid? And would you be open to sharing any tips on how to deal with adversity?
Sorry, did you say adversity?
Yeah.
In all honesty, I have not had a chance to deal with adversity, because for me, it doesn't feel like it does exist at National Grid. And this is not to just because I work for Grid. Again, it is because there hasn't been room for that. There hasn't been need for that. I think people are actually quite fair and nice and understanding and just amiable, if you ask me. And there hasn't been need for adversity.
Okay, so it's a good company culture, you'd say. Everybody's really good, helpful, friendly, etc.
Yeah. I wouldn't say this is adversity as such. I would say we have a review process that sort of takes place sort of every 6 months. Depending on what scheme you're on, but regular reviews with team managers, line managers, things like that. So 6 months ago, I had my interim review for my first placement, and it probably wasn't what I wanted. But the feedback that I received, I reached out to my mentor, which is sort of completely disconnected to my current role. That whole process was really enlightening for me. So it wasn't adversity, but it was something that I knew I had to work on, and I knew there's certain things I had to do to sort of gain better feedback. And I've recently, over the past 6 months, I've worked on quite a few things, and I've just had my sort of final review in the past couple of weeks, and it was overwhelmingly positive. It's probably better than I was expecting if you asked me 6 months ago. So yeah, I wouldn't say that's how I've dealt with adversity, but like I sort of said, there's a big network sort of at Grid, and there's always people wanting to help you because you're a graduate, and sort of, because they're helpful people in general. So there's a huge network, and sort of the feedback that you get and development points that you receive all sort of help towards being able to maybe deal with some adversity. Like Amica, I probably haven't dealt with like a particular adversity point, but yeah, the feedback is really good.
Excellent, thank you. Toby says, and obviously environmental issues are a big hot topic, aren't they, all the time? What types of changes are National Grid making to meet net zero emissions? Are graduates involved in this anyway?
So I could probably jump in there again. So I mean, National Grid, basically their task is to ensure that the grid is going to be prepared for meeting net zero. So that there's a really big project at the moment going down the East Coast. It involves a lot of different complicated investment projects, but the idea is that they're going to basically be, connecting a lot of projects down the East Coast, offshore wind farms, connecting where there's a lot of wind in Scotland, down to a lot of where there's a lot of demand, which is down in the south, London, Birmingham. So there's a vast amount of investment projects going on down the East Coast. The team that I'm going into, my line manager, he is the finance business partner for basically what is going to be 16 projects, which currently there's only, 3 or 4. So in a word, I guess there are opportunities all over the place, but that's sort of an example where I'm going into a team where I am basically assisting that in some way. And for the engineering roles, I'm assuming that they're sort of similar. It's all about just making the grid facilitate net zero at the end of the day. I don't know if Amica, you want to say anything about that?
Just to shed a bit more light on that as well. As a graduate in National Grid, one of the good things is that you're involved in literally everything. I don't know of any work stream area that's out of bounds for graduates to say, oh, because you're a new guy, you can't really contribute to that. No, that's not the culture at Grid. So we're involved in literally everything. My third placement, which I've just now started, would be in the ESO. And one of the main tasks towards net zero that the ESO has set for itself, actually, is to be able to run the UK grid carbon-free by 2025. So what it means is that we're having to basically literally redesign the system, replan the system, and do a whole lot of other things to ensure that past 2025, we would be able to run the UK power network carbon-free if the industry can give us carbon-free electricity. So, of course, conventional generation has been, with coal and some of these carbon-intensive sources and all that. But as we move towards, more wind farms and solar and perhaps even some bit of nuclear and all that and cleaner energy, it's a bit tough to run the network without the conventional systems that we have, because the network is designed for that. So essentially, the ESO is redesigning the entire system, I can say that, to ensure that we can allow a whole lot of connections as we move into net zero, EVs and things like that. So that's one of the things that we do.
Thanks, guys. Leads me into my next question, actually. With all this change happening, what sort of jobs should people be looking at, future jobs for career longevity, really?
I could say that from my little vantage point of view, in the engineering side of things, of course, we would always need mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and civil engineers and all that. These things are fundamental to life. So we couldn't do without these things. For softer skills, of course, a whole lot of cybersecurity, because there's going to be more things are going to be connecting to themselves even more on critical infrastructure for that matter. So that means that the threat of cyber attacks and all that would be a whole lot higher. So that's one skill area that I think would be quite relevant in the industry going forward. I also know that data as well forms a huge part of our lives currently. And literally every company, especially Grid, has need for a lot of data for all our forecasting, our energy forecasting and things like that. So data analysis and data science, artificial intelligence and things like that would also be quite necessary as we approach the next decade and all that.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to recap on some bits you might have already touched on, but we've had questions come in from people who may have missed it or something. But yeah, I'll just run through them here. So first one, do you need an engineering background to join National Grid?
No, you don't need any kind of relevant work experience as such. We really do just look, we set our criteria which are based on your university degree. So if you're applying for an engineering role, it's likely that you'll have to have studied an engineering degree or even just a STEM subject. It kind of varies from every different role, but we don't look at your sort of work experience. It is just your degree discipline, and different roles will have different requirements for each of those.
Okay, thank you. What's the starting salary and how many grads do you take on per year?
So we take on, I think, about roughly between 50 and 60 grads every year, sort of across all the different programs. The starting salary, I'll just see if I can go back just so I couldn't get the exact figure, but it's 29,254 if you hold a bachelor's degree, and 30,318 if you hold a master's degree. So that's for this year.
Okay, good salary then, brilliant, thank you. This question we get asked all the time, so see how you can answer it. What's the ideal type of candidate that you look for?
That's a very difficult question. I suppose there wouldn't be just one type of ideal candidate, as every role might be looking for slightly different things. But I think, as some of the grads have mentioned, one of the key things that all business hiring managers will look for is just your kind of enthusiasm, your motivation, you know, how much effort you've put into your application. I think that always just comes across really well, because obviously the graduate programs, there's a lot that goes into them. There's a lot of kind of people working behind the scenes. So obviously you want that opportunity to go to someone that's really going to, you know, put all of their effort into it as well, and make it work, and hopefully have a long career with National Grid.
Thank you. Another one here. What qualifications do the graduates work towards on the graduate scheme? Are there any formal qualifications?
I don't know if Amica and Fraser might best to answer that, just because they're kind of in that position at the moment, but it does vary depending on which role you've gone for.
Yeah, I think it does vary, like you just said. For guys on the finance program, I think for Fraser, he would know better, but I think that the finance guys basically have to have a certain qualification by the end of their scheme. I think the guys on the project management schemes, of course, will be looking to get, you know, some of those professional certifications like Prince 2 or PMP or something similar to that. For the engineers like myself, you don't really have any particular thing. How do I put it now? You're not necessarily going for a particular qualification, but it is expected that somewhere around 5 years into your career, you would either have been chartered or working towards chartership. So that's a good kind of goal to have in mind. And of course, developing the competencies that you need in your own business area and teams and all that.
Thank you. Jan says, do you accept applications from international students, and do you offer any support to applications from abroad? I'm assuming sort of financial support or something like that, maybe.
Let me just jump in here, because I'm an international student myself. But I wasn't recruited from outside of the UK. So I was studying in the UK doing a master's, and just rounded up my program, and then, you know, applied to Grid and got the job. So for support, what I would say is that Grid is I think Grid has I think how does the UK call it? There's a list that I know that the UK government has of eligible sponsors, companies that can sponsor international students and all that. So Grid is one of those companies that has that ability to sponsor across different kind of programs. So if you did apply to Grid, not having a right to work currently in the UK does not stop you, because if you are successful on the assessment center and you're given an offer, then Grid would sponsor your visa. Grid did that for me, and Grid, and I know a couple of other grads whom Grid did that for, because they were not UK citizens, but they've schooled in the UK and they've applied and gotten successful, and so Grid does sponsor visas.
Excellent, thank you. Paul says, and this is probably going to have to be our last one. Paul says, do you offer interns a fast-track route onto your graduate scheme?
Yes, we do. So if you took a placement as an undergraduate, which sometimes is called intern, industrial placement, undergrad, and you're on a summer placement or even the 12-month program, provided that you're successful and you're meeting all of the requirements of the program, it's obviously would be the hiring manager's, your mentor's decision, but providing everything's gone well, you would be offered a position on the graduate program. So you wouldn't have to go to an assessment centre, you would just kind of be offered that graduate position.
Okay, brilliant. I suppose one more, last one, someone's saying, do you help with fees for doing a master's?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you help people with the fees for doing a master's degree?
No, not that I'm aware of. I don't think that's something that we would offer. If you were to join National Grid and you were looking to do a master's and it was relevant to your role within the company, it may be something that National Grid would pay for and support, but that's a case by case. But we wouldn't offer support for candidates that haven't started with National Grid, if that makes sense. Yeah,
of course. I'll just flick through the slider set because somebody's asked for the link for application forms on the screen there. So before we wrap up, Jenny or the team, would you like to leave any sort of parting words to the audience today?
So let's say thanks to everyone who's joined today. It's great that so many people have signed up. Hopefully we've answered all your questions, and thanks to the team for doing that. Obviously welcome applications, but just get them in as soon as possible.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, guys. Really great session. If anyone wants to know any more about National Grid, the grad stuff, the apprenticeships, interns, head over to their website. I'm sure there's lots of information on there. And just say, thank you for everybody for turning up today. We've got a load more events for National Graduate Week coming up, so head over to the website there, have a look at what you can come and join, and we'll see you soon, hopefully. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.